The market smelled like blood and metal. Chains rattled as the guards dragged her forward. Her skin was bruised, her ankles raw from tight cuffs. She kept her head down, hair covering her face. She knew what this place was, the auction block. She was not the only one being sold today. Round her, other girls waited, silent and shaking. Most were young, some barely teenagers. The rich buyers looked at them like items. Some laughed. Some pointed. She had been taught since childhood. If a human buys you, don't fight. Just survive the night. Humans were known for being brutal, especially the older ones. She had seen what they did. She had seen what was left of girls after the first night. The speaker shouted something, calling out for bids. Alien voices responded. Then silence. Footsteps, heavy, slow footsteps. She looked up just for a second. Human man stood there. Not young, not old, but somewhere in between. His beard was gray, his coat was dusty. He looked plain. He raised a hand. The auctioneer paused, surprised. The human bids 5 credits. Gasps filled the crowd. 5 credits was low, an insult. But no one dared challenge him. No one matched the bid. Sold. The speaker yelled. Her chains were unlocked. Rough hands pushed her forward, right into the human's arms. She braced herself, but he didn't grab her. He didn't pull her close or look her over. He simply turned and said, "Let's go." She followed him, her body tense. Her mind raced. Is he waiting until we're alone? Till no one can hear me scream? She had heard the stories. They walked through the dusty streets toward a small ship. It wasn't big, wasn't shiny. It looked old. She stepped inside, expecting to see a cage or a chain wall, but there was none. Instead, there was a small cot in the corner, a folded blanket. Warm clothes, neatly placed. A soft light glowed from the ceiling. He walked over to a shelf, took out something wrapped in cloth, and handed it to her. "Food," he said. "You look hungry." She didn't move. He set it down slowly and stepped back. "You don't have to eat if you don't want," he said gently. "You're safe here." Safe. That word didn't exist in her world. She waited for the trap for the lie to show itself. He moved to the cockpit and sat down. She stared at the food, then at the man. He wasn't watching her, wasn't waiting to pounce. Still shaking, she picked up the food. It was warm, fresh, not drugged, not spoiled. She took a bite. Nothing happened. Tears welled up in her eyes. She hated that she cried. It showed weakness. But her body didn't listen. After she ate, she slowly walked toward the corner of the ship and curled up on the floor, far from the bed. She wrapped her arms around herself. Her clothes were torn and thin. The cold bit into her skin. He didn't stop her. He didn't tell her where to sleep. He didn't even look at her. He simply dimmed the lights as she lay there. Staring into the soft shadows, her mind whispered, "Maybe he's waiting for me to fall. Asleep. Maybe that's when it starts." Her eyes burned. Her heart pounded. She stayed awake for hours. The ship was silent. No footsteps. No voice. No orders, just silence, and then a soft sound. She held her breath. The man appeared in the dim light, walking quietly, holding something in his arms. She froze. He knelt beside her, not close, not touching. He placed a folded blanket next to her, a thick one. Then, gently, he put a pair of soft clothes by her feet, not the kind slaves wore, but normal, clean clothes. She didn't move, didn't speak. Then he did something that shocked her to her core. He smiled. Not a cruel smile, not a mocking one, just kind. "I'll be in the cockpit if you need anything," he said softly. Then he left. No chains, no threats, no hands on her body, just warmth and silence. She stared at the blanket, at the clothes. She didn't understand what was happening. Was this a trick? Was this some kind of trap? Her fingers touched the fabric. It was soft, real. For the first time in years, something inside her stirred. Not fear, not hate, but something she didn't recognize. Asterisk. She didn't sleep. Gently over her shoulders, even with warmth spreading across her bruised back, her eyes stayed open all night. Every sound, the hum of the ship, the whisper of recycled air, kept her alert. She had survived too long to believe in kindness, especially from a human. She wrapped herself tighter, breathing quietly as she stared at the cockpit where the man sat. He hadn't come back. Not once. Hours passed. The stars outside drifted like cold ghosts, blinking silently. She didn't understand what he was doing, or why. At sunrise, or whatever time it was on the strange ship, she heard the soft clink of something being placed on a metal surface. Footsteps walked away again. She sat up, hair tangled across her face. Her arms were stiff, legs sore. But when she turned her head, she saw something on the table. Food, again, steam curled from the plate. Real food, not the sour scraps she had eaten in the slave pits. This was cooked fresh. There was water, clear and cold, not the muddy. Ration water she had grown used to. She walked slowly to it, barefoot, silent. Her hands hovered. Was it poisoned? Was it drugged this time? Her nose picked up a scent, soft spices, warm grains. It smelled like memory. Something lost. She took one bite. Then another. Her stomach clenched painfully at first, not used to food this clean. But she didn't stop. When she looked up, the man was standing at the edge of the room, far enough not to startle her. "I made too much," he said. She froze, food halfway. To her mouth. "I didn't know what you liked," he added. Still, she said nothing. She didn't know if she could speak. Her voice felt locked away like the rest of her past. Then suddenly, a sound escaped her, soft, barely a whisper. "Why?" The man blinked. "Why? What?" She held the plate tighter. "Why? Doing this?" He stepped forward slowly, hands at his sides, never lifting them. His expression stayed calm because no one else did. That confused her. She stared at him, not understanding. "You were terrified when I bought you," he continued. "I saw it in your eyes. You thought I would hurt you." Looked away, shame rising. "I'm not here to hurt you," he said gently. "Then, why buy me?" she asked, voice thin, "to take you away from them." Tears threatened again. She hated how icily they came around him. It had been years since she cried, and now her body betrayed her again. "I'm not a good man," he said. "I've done bad things in the war. I've seen worse. But when I saw you, when I saw how they treated you, I couldn't walk away." She didn't know what to say. No one had ever spoken to her like this. Not as an owner, not as a master, but like a person. He sat down in the chair across the room, far from her, but still close enough to hear her next words. "I thought you'd use me," she said. He nodded slowly. "I know, why didn't you?" His voice dropped lower, almost a whisper. "Because you've already been through hell. I don't want to be another demon." Silence fell again. She looked at the clothes beside her, clean, simple, not revealing. "I don't know how to act around you," she said honestly. "I was trained for pain, for obedience." "You don't have to be anything," he replied. "You're free to just exist. He'll eat, sleep, speak if you want to or don't." She touched the edge of the plate. The warmth had reached her hands. Something else had begun to reach deeper. "I don't remember my real name," she said quietly. "They called me Subject 17. Then we'll find you a new name," he said with a soft smile. "One you choose yourself." She blinked at him, unsure if she'd ever heard someone say that before. Choose. She had never chosen anything. He showed her the ship, not to control her, but to teach her. He let her touch the controls, explained how the thrusters worked, what the blinking lights meant. She was smart, she picked it up quickly. Hours passed. When he laughed once at something she said, it didn't sound like a trap. It sounded like a man who hadn't laughed in a long time. That night, she returned to the same corner, unsure of where else she belonged. She didn't want to intrude, but he stopped her gently before she lay down. "You don't have to sleep on the floor," he said. "The cot is yours now." She stared at it. It was clean, soft, with a pillow and blanket already waiting. Still, she hesitated. He didn't press her. "Only if you want." She stood frozen in thought, torn between old fear and something new. Then she asked the question that had been burning all day. "What do you want from me?" He met her eyes. Nothing. She stepped forward slowly, sat on the edge of the cot. He smiled and turned away. That night, she pulled the blanket over herself and lay down not as a slave, but as someone beginning to remember what it felt like to be human. And just before sleep took her, one thought echoed in her mind: what kind of human buys a slave, only to give her freedom? The answer, she was beginning to realize, was a kind she never knew existed. Asterisk, she woke up before the ship's lights could simulate dawn. For a second, she didn't know where she was. The blanket around her shoulders was too soft, the cot too warm. Her body didn't ache from cold metal or hard stone. There was no shouting, no sharp footsteps coming to drag her out. Just stillness. It confused her, scared her. She sat up quickly, heart pounding, half expecting someone to grab her, but no one came. The cockpit was quiet. The pilot's chair was empty. The man wasn't there. Panic stabbed her chest. Was this a trick? Did he leave? Did he sell her again while she slept? Her feet hit the floor as she stood up, fists clenched. She tiptoed through the ship like a shadow, checking each hallway, each doorway. Then Jay's a small galley room near the back. She stopped. He was there, sitting on a low bench, eyes closed, sipping something warm from a steel mug. A steaming bowl sat untouched on the table beside him. A second bowl, one meant for her. He looked up and smiled softly. "Didn't mean to wake you." She stared at him, unsure what to say. He didn't look like a master. He didn't act like one. "I thought you left me," she whispered. "I wouldn't," he said simply. That answer came to icily, to calmly. She lowered her eyes. "Most people do." He stood and motioned to the chair across from him. "Eat. Talk if you want. Or don't. It's your choice." She sat slowly, still watching him. The food smelled good again. Spiced broth and flatbread. Warm, real. She picked it up, but didn't eat yet. Instead, she asked, "Why are you kind to me?" He didn't answer right away. He looked at her, not like property, not like someone broken, but like someone waiting to heal. "Because the universe has enough cruelty," he said. "I don't want to add more." "You paid for me," she said. "That's not kindness." "I paid to get you away from them," he said firmly. "You were treated like a thing. I saw that, and I was angry." "Then what do you want in return?" she asked, voice shaking. He leaned back. "Nothing, nothing." She repeated, "Nothing you don't want to give," he said. That sentence hit her like lightning, because in her life, want never mattered. Her body had been touched without asking, her voice ignored, her thoughts dismissed. Now this man, a stranger, was offering her the one thing no one ever had. "Choice? I don't understand you," she said. He chuckled softly. "That makes two of us." They sat in silence for a while. She began to eat. Every bite was heavy with thought. Her fingers didn't shake as much now. Her back didn't curl with fear. She looked at him again. "You're not like the stories." Raised an eyebrow. "What stories?" "The ones they told us in the camps. About humans. That you all liked pain. That you bought us for. Sick things." His eyes darkened for a moment. "Some do. I've seen it. But not all of us are like that." "You're different," she said. "I try to be." She pushed her empty bowl away. Her voice was low, uncertain. "I don't remember my real name. Not sure I ever had one." "Then pick one," he said. "Anything you want?" She looked around the ship, then down at her hands. "Vela," she said at last. "Lane Starlight in one of the old languages from my home world." He smiled. "Starlight suits you." The name settled into her chest like a missing puzzle piece, a piece she didn't know she needed. Later that day, he showed her the engine bay. Not because he needed help, but because he wanted her to learn. Her eyes lit up for the first time in years. She touched wires, checked circuits, asked questions, real ones. "You're smart," he said. "Quick learner." "I used to build things," she said. "Before." She didn't finish the sentence. "You don't have to talk about it," he said gently, but part of her wanted to, just not yet. That night, she stood by his door. He looked up, surprised but didn't speak. She hesitated, then walked in slowly and sat at the edge of the bed. "I don't know what this feeling is," she said, eyes on the floor. "I'm scared but not like before. My chest feels warm. My mind feels loud. I want to run but not away." He didn't move toward her, just listened. "I don't want you to own me," she said. "I never did. But I want to stay anyway," she whispered. He reached out not to grab her, but to gently tuck a strand of her hair behind her ear. His touch was feather-light. "Respectful, you're safe here, Vila," he said. "You decide what happens next." Her heart thudded. Not with fear, but with something new, something she had never dared feel. Trust. She lay beside him, not in submission, not in fear, but in the quiet hope that maybe, just maybe, the night wouldn't bring pain. And as her eyes closed, one thought came clear and strong: he didn't save my body. He saved my soul. Vila didn't sleep the whole night. But for the first time in years, she rested. No one touched her. No one shouted her name or pulled her from the floor. She lay beside the human on a clean bed, wrapped in soft cloth and warm air, listening to the quiet hum of the ship around her. She didn't know when her eyes finally closed, but when they opened again, she was still there. And so was he. He hadn't moved. His back was turned, facing the other side of the bed, giving her space. He could have touched her. He didn't. He could have claimed her. He didn't. She sat up slowly. Her hands shook, not from fear, but from confusion. Her mind didn't know what to do with safety. He turned his head and gave her a small, sleepy smile. Morning. Had ever greeted her like that before? Not without expectation, not without price. "I didn't think I'd wake up here," she said. "You don't have to stay," he said gently, "but I'm glad you did." She looked down at the blanket, fingers curling into the fabric. "I've never stayed anywhere by choice. Maybe it's time to start." She didn't answer. Her chest felt too full. Later that day, she followed him into the heart of the ship, the engine room. He showed her the cooling systems, the fuel intake lines, the emergency systems. She asked questions, real ones. Not to please him, but because she wanted to know. He watched her like a man seeing a flower bloom in dust. "You're good at this," he said. "I used to be better," she replied, wiping grease on her arm. "They broke my hands once. I thought I'd never fix anything again." He paused. "Who broke them?" She didn't answer, not with words, or silence said enough. He looked like he wanted to say something, maybe even find whoever hurt her, but he didn't. Instead, he gave her a tool she'd never held before. And together, they fixed a rattling panel near the cargo bay by nightfall. Her face and arms were streaked with oil, but her smile was real, not forced, not hollow, just real. She sat with him again in the common room. Not too close, you're not too far. Not close enough to feel the heat from his shoulder, but far enough to know he wouldn't touch her without her asking. There was a soft silence between them, not awkward, just easy. "I was taught that pleasure was something men took," she said quietly, "that my body was for them, not for me." His eyes didn't leave hers. They lied. "I know," she said. "Now." Then, after a pause, she whispered, "Can I ask something? Anything? If I asked you to touch me, would you?" He didn't move. He didn't rush. He just nodded slowly. "Only if you ask. Only how you ask." Her lips trembled. Her hands curled into fists to stop the shaking. She stood, stepped closer, then knelt in front of him, not like a servant, but like someone finally claiming her own space. "Then touch me," she said softly. "Not to hurt, not to take, just to remind me I'm still alive." His hand reached out, fingers brushing her cheek, slowly, gently, as if he were afraid she might break. She leaned into it. Her breath caught. No one had touched her like this. His palm was warm, solid, safe. Her eyes, closed. When his thumb wiped a tear from her cheek, her lips parted in a soft breath. Not a sob, not a cry, but something new. A release. Then she opened her eyes and placed her own hand on his chest. His heartbeat was steady, slow, real. "Can I stay here tonight?" she asked. "Always," he whispered. They lay on the bed again. She curled into him, her head against his chest, his arms wrapped carefully around her. He didn't ask for more. He didn't need to. They spoke in heartbeats, in warmth, in the shared silence of healing. At one point, her voice broke the quiet. "I used to think all humans were monsters." "I know," he said, "but I think you might be the only real human I've ever met." He kissed the top of her head. "And I'll make sure you never meet another monster again." She believed him. Even if the stars outside still held danger, even if the past still clawed at her thoughts, right now, in this bed, in this moment, she was more than a slave, or more than a survivor. She was a woman, she was Vela, and she was his. Not by chain, not by force, but by choice. Vela had never felt this much warmth without pain. Every touch she had known before came with a bruise, a chain, a demand. But now she was wrapped in silence, his arms loosely around her, her cheek, against his chest, listening to his heartbeat. She wasn't chained, she wasn't held down, she was simply held in the darkness of the ship's night cycle. She didn't sleep, but she didn't want to move either. Her hand lay against the fabric of his shirt, feeling the steady rise and fall of his breath. She wondered if he knew what he was doing to her. Not with his hands, but with his absence of cruelty. It was terrifying to feel safe, to feel like maybe, just maybe, she had something worth holding on to. When the lights slowly brightened in soft hues to simulate morning, she looked up at him. He was already awake, his eyes open, quietly watching the ceiling. "Did I move too close?" she asked, voice barely above a whisper. "No," he said, turning to look at her. "You stayed close. There's a difference." She felt her face flush. That had never happened before. Blushing, shame, yes. Panic, yes. But not this warm, fluttering feeling that made her pull the blanket a little tighter around herself. "I've never wanted anyone to see me like this," she admitted, not raw, not unsure, not open. "I see you," he said gently, "and I'm not afraid." She blinked fast. Her heart stuttered at his words. No one had ever spoken to her like that. No one had looked at her like she wasn't dirty or broken. And suddenly, she wanted something more, something she wasn't sure she could name. Later that day, as he worked at the navigation console, Vela sat nearby, pretending to read a manual he'd given her. She wasn't reading, she was watching him. The way his hands moved, the way his brow furrowed when he thought hard, the way he chewed the inside of his cheek when calculating coordinates. She had never studied someone this way, never wanted to. Her legs felt tense, her fingers curled tighter than normal. Heat swirled deep in her stomach, spreading upward like a soft fire. She didn't understand it at first. Then she did. Desire, but not the forced kind, not the one others took from her. This was something she wanted to feel, something her body whispered now, asking if she was ready to trust again, to give without fear, to be touched and not owned. She walked up behind him and placed a hand on his shoulder. He froze just for a second, then relaxed. "You okay?" he asked. "I think so," she said, voice quiet. He turned to face her. She looked into his eyes. Really looked, and then she kissed him. It was soft, awkward at first. Her lips trembled.
Oh.
She didn't know where to place her hands. She had no training. For kindness only, performance for control. But he didn't take over. He didn't deepen the kiss. He let her lead. When she pulled back, her eyes were wide. "I don't know what I'm doing," she said, breath catching. "You're doing just fine," he replied. She laughed, not out of joy, but out of disbelief. "I've been with men before, hundreds, but never like this. Never when I wanted to." Touched her face gently. "Then let this be your first time, Vela, the one that's yours." Her hands moved slowly. She removed her shirt, exposing the thin scars. the faded bruises across her skin. She waited for the look, the hunger, the taking, but he didn't look at her body like that. He looked at her face, into her eyes. As if the rest didn't matter, she stepped closer, pressing her chest gently against his. "Will you still want me like this?" "I don't want your body, Vela," he whispered. "I want your trust. If you give me both, then yes, I'll accept. But I won't take it without both." Tears filled her eyes. No one had ever asked for her trust. It's only her obedience. And now he asked for the one thing she never knew she still had. She nodded. He led her back to the cot, not forcefully. Like a buyer dragging a prize, but like a man guiding someone fragile. Cherished, they undressed slowly, not with hunger, but reverence. Every touch was soft. Every kiss was a question, and every answer was hers to give. She trembled, not in fear, but in freedom, and when it was over, she didn't feel used. She didn't feel hollow. She felt full, not just in body, but in soul. She lay on his chest afterward, breathing slow. Fingers curled in his shirt. "I didn't know this kind of pleasure existed," she said. "It's not the pleasure that matters," he whispered. "It's who shares it with you." But as they drifted into sleep, the ship's long-range scanner blinked silently in the background. Red. Someone had pinged their ship's location. Vela's past was catching up. Asterisk. They spent the next day in quiet closeness. Vela moved with a new softness in her steps, as if something inside her had been gently repaired. Not fully, not yet, but healing had begun. He didn't treat her differently, didn't gloat, didn't act like he'd won something. He still cooked for them, still showed her the systems, still asked how she felt without pressing for answers she wasn't ready to give, and she appreciated that more than words could say. But beneath the comfort, something else began to grow, a flicker of dread. It came like a shadow at the edge of her mind, small, faint, but always there. Then it came, late at night. When they were curled together under the cot's blanket, the ship's alert pinged. Urgent, but different. Urgent. He rose quietly, not wanting to wake her, but she was already sitting up. She could feel it. Trouble. He checked the screen. His face changed. "What is it?" she asked, voice already tight. He turned to her, jaw tense. "A long-range scan just picked us up. Someone pinged our ID signature." "No one knows this ship," she whispered. "Not unless they've been looking." She stood, her bare feet touching the cold floor. How long until they're close? Hard to say. They're fast, maybe a few hours. She stared at the stars through the viewport, her chest rising and falling. "They found me." He walked toward her, reaching out, but this time, she didn't lean into him. She pulled away, wrapping her arms around herself. "I should have known it wouldn't last," she said. "I should have left before this." "I don't regret any moment with you," he said. "Not one." She looked up at him, eyes burning. "You don't know what they'll do to me if they catch me. I won't let them. They'll kill you." He didn't flinch. "Maybe, but they won't take you." Her knees gave way. She sat on the edge of the cot, shaking. He knelt in front of her, resting his hands on her knees. "We have two options," he said. "We can run, or we can prepare." Her lips parted. "Run where?" "They'll chase me across the stars." "Then maybe it's time you stopped running." She looked at him, unsure what he meant. "I've seen what you're capable of," he said. "You fix engines like you're breathing. You're smart. You're fast. You're stronger than anyone I've met. And I think you're tired of being hunted." She was. God, she was. But fear had always been her leash. He didn't push her. Just waited. Finally, she whispered, "I want to fight, but I don't know how." He smiled. "Then let me show you." Over the next few hours, he armed the ship. Old weapons, modified systems. Not much, but enough to make a stand. She watched, learned, helped. He taught her how to override the sensor scramblers, how to arm the manual guns, how to reroute power from the nav lights to the shield core. She absorbed it like a sponge. Her fear didn't vanish, but it was no longer in control. When the enemy ship finally arrived, It didn't hail them. It didn't ask questions. It fired. The first shot rocked their hull. Alarms screamed. He jumped into the pilot's chair, yelling shield status. 47%. She shouted from the rear console. Return fire on my mark. Didn't hesitate. The old plasma gun spun up with a groan and spat fire through the dark. The enemy ship rolled sideways, not expecting resistance. They thought you were still a slave, he muttered, maneuvering them with sharp turns. They didn't expect you to fight. They expected me to run, she said. And you're not, he replied. No, she said through gritted teeth. Not anymore. She took out one of the engine pods on the enemy's hull. Sparks scattered across the void. The second shot from the enemy missed completely. The third never came because Vila launched a final burst straight through their front array. Silence followed. She stared at the scanner. Nothing but debris. They'd won. She sank to the floor, gasping. He rushed to her. You okay? She nodded, then began to laugh. Not from joy, but disbelief. I did it. I actually did it. He helped her up, held her tightly. You're not just someone who survived. You're someone who fights back. Her face buried in his chest. You gave me the chance. Gave me the tools. No, he said, pulling back to look into her eyes. I just gave you space. You did the rest. She pressed her forehead to his. Then stay with me. Wherever I go, whatever comes, stay, eh? I was never going to leave, he whispered. But outside, deep in the stars, another beacon flashed, faint, distant, but moving fast. The first was only a scout. More were coming, and now Vela would have to decide, would she hide again or lead the fight herself?
Asterisk, they barely had time to breathe.
The first ship hadn't been alone. The wreckage was still drifting. In silence, when the long-range sensors flared again, this time brighter, stronger, multiple pings, more vessels. Bigger ones. Vila stood in front of the console, hands gripping the edges tight, her knuckles white. How many? She asked. He checked the screen, his jaw clenched. 3, maybe 4, all fast, armed, not scouts this time. Her eyes burned. They weren't expecting resistance before. Now they're coming to make sure I disappear. He turned to her. Then we disappear them first. She shook her head slowly. No, I won't run again. He opened his mouth to speak, but stopped. She wasn't trembling. She wasn't backing away. She was calm. Certain double quotes. Then what do you want to do? He asked. She looked at the ship around them. It wasn't a warship. It wasn't made for battle. But she knew its insides now like she knew her own breath. She had touched every wire, every panel. She had patched its wounds like it had patched hers. We make it ready, she said. And I lead. He blinked. You. Yes, she replied, stepping into the center of the room. It's no more hiding behind someone else. I know what they are. I know how they think. And I know exactly where to hurt them. There was no hesitation in her voice. Not anymore. He smiled, slow and proud. Then I'll follow your orders. She stared at him. You would? I trust you, he said. That word trust landed harder than any weapon. She nodded once. Then let's give them hell. The next 2 hours were a blur of movement. She rerouted power from the lower life support deck to boost shield capacity. He mounted plasma cores to extend turret range. Together. They coded the ship's ID signature with fractured beacon noise. A trick Vela remembered from her time in captivity. They'll think we're damaged, she said. That's when we strike. She wore a dark jacket now. Not armor, not rags. Just something that made her feel real. A person, not a number. Her scars were visible. She didn't hide them. She wanted them to see, to remember. When the enemy ships dropped out of warp, they formed a triangle, a formation used by slave hunters. She knew it well, but they didn't know her. Not anymore. Vila's fingers danced. Over the control panel. Let them close in. Wait until they all focus forward. He didn't question her. He just watched her, admiring the fire in her eyes. Now, she shouted. She activated the ship's pulse core, An ancient tech most traders thought useless. But she knew better. It released a blinding, disorienting flare. 2 of the ships stalled, caught off guard. The third tried to flank, but she'd already anticipated that. Rotate left 30 degrees, fire sequence Eco 7. He moved fast, trusting her call. The blast hit the flanker dead. Dash on. It spun in space. Engines sputtering. The others tried to recover, but Vela was faster. She shifted power again. Something risky, something she'd never tried. Rooting plasma. Charged directly into the emergency thruster to boost weapon output. The ship groaned, screamed, then fired. The second enemy exploded into a shower of burning debris. The third turned to run. Cowards. They always ran once their prey bit back. She locked. Weapons don't, he said softly. Let them run. She hesitated. They'll tell the others, he added. Tell them what you did. She smiled slowly. Good. The silence afterward felt deeper, richer, final. She powered down the weapons, rested her hands in her lap. Her fingers ached, her muscles burned, but her chest felt light. He turned his chair toward her. You were incredible. She looked at him. I was just angry. No, he said. You were free. She didn't cry, not this time. She stood and walked to him, resting her forehead against his. You didn't save me, you know, she whispered. I know. I saved myself, but you. You gave me the time, the space, the chance. I'd do it again, he said. Every day. I stood like that for a while, to people who had nothing, and now had everything. Not riches, not titles, but something better. Love, trust, a future. Where to now, Captain? He asked her with a grin. She blinked. Captain, he gestured around them. This is your ship now? She smiled, wide and real. We go where I say, he saluted, and the stars opened before them. Final line, she was no longer a slave, no longer afraid, no longer silent. She was Vela. The galaxy would remember her name.